everyone. So, my name is Joan Musa, and welcome to talk number 6. So, I am married, by the way. I look single, but I am married to a very wonderful man, Anthony Musa. Chef. So yeah, we've been married for almost 10 years. But we're also have been member of Couples for Christ since 2011, and we have been a household head since 2014, 15, roughly that time. So, well, I am requested to do loving your neighbor, which is talk number 6. I'm not sure if I'm worthy to to do this talk, but the reason why I said that is because when I was researching and reading through the outline, it makes me question if am I loving my neighbor. So what you see here is our very first household. Us being the household head, we have gone a couple of reshuffles, but it's very special because this is the very first time we've experienced, being the household head, and we have developed such a really, really good relationship, friendship. And when I say neighbor, it's not literally your neighbor, and these people are my neighbor. And some of these people may be, going through something, some of you never know. And we're just so glad that we've become part of, these people's lives. So, I don't know how to follow Ray's talk, he's so good. But yeah, well, he did the first part of these 2 commandments, so loving God. And the commandment is actually asking us to do 2 things. Well, 2 commandments, which is to love God, as how Ray had discussed it. And this is stated in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 5. So you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. That has been discussed by Ray. So I won't go further with that anymore because he's done a really great job. But that's the first and the most important. Before we go to the next, that's why the talk of Ray came first. We should live it. We should follow that. We should do that first before we actually, before we are able to do. Before we're able to love our neighbor. So we are asked to love our neighbors as ourselves. That should be together. So this is stated in Leviticus chapter 19, verses 18. You shall not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. See that when it says, I am the Lord, it's kind of like when you read it, it kind of says, Ako ang batas. And that is a commandment. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And this is a commandment given to us by the Lord. So in the Christian belief, Christian life, loving your neighbor together with loving God, this is the form of the Christian life. So you cannot love God without loving your neighbor. At the same time, you cannot love your neighbor without really knowing what God is or what kind of love God is or has. As I have said earlier, to love one's neighbor is a commandment from God. So that love thy neighbor thing, I mean that. Sabi ni Lord. It means that it's not just a word for you to read or for you to just put it on your head, but also for you to act on, to spread on. Again, loving your neighbor together with loving God forms the core of the Christian life. So to love one's neighbor is a commandment from God. If someone says he loves God but hates his brother, he is a liar. I would say a hypocrite. For he cannot love God whom he has not seen, if he does not love his brother whom he has seen. The commandment that Christ has given us is this: whoever loves God must love his brother also. And with this, I took a picture of Mother Teresa because I think she encompasses and she's the picture of, a love for others, love for the poor, love for those who needs help. And so I think she's a good example. But of course, we have God as a perfect example of what true love is. So I guess my talk is actually, I think it just wants to state like how important it is and how God wants us to follow this commandment. So the greatest commandment from Mark chapter 12, 28 to 31. So it's stated in Deuteronomy, in Leviticus, in Mark, in Luke, in John, in every verse of the Bible, that you are requested, you are asked to love God and to ask your neighbor. So one of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating, noticing what Jesus had given them. A good answer, he asked him. Of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There's no greater commandment than this. I have said it in 3 slides already, and I hope it remains in your heart, and remains in your mind to love God and to love your neighbor. So what we are called to do is to love one another. Whoever loves is a child of God and knows God. Whoever does not know God, whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. So we have been asked to love, love God, love our neighbor, but do we know what are the characteristics of a Christian love? Does any of you have any idea what it is? Or can any of you give at least one characteristic of love? Describe what kind of love do you have for your husband? Marisa? Love is blind. Slum books, when I was a kid, I would sign up slum books. Yeah, that was my time. I said, love is like a rosary full of mystery. There goes I said Alamin. Love is like a sun that lights up my world. But that was fun. But yeah, that is love, but love is deeper than that. You probably had this when you did your vows when you got married. Any one of you familiar with Corinthians? Yes? And that perfectly describes what a Christian love should be. So, are you ready for this? So love is patient. Well, to love other is to be patient. We should be slow to anger. We should give ample allowance for the shortcoming of others. Let's just go to our marriage. When you married your husband, when you married your wife, you were so in love. But later on you realize you grew up with different culture, different values. You realize you're 2 different people. And so the way how you grew up is different than how he did. So sometimes you would end up doing something that is probably not 100% agreeable on his ways. For example, I grew up in the Philippines. So let's just do the simple one. When you are trying to order from the restaurant or from fast food, we're used to like going at the front and see first and actually trying to think of what you want to have first. Or let's just say it, you think that you are maabilidad, but you're actually trying to get ahead of others. And you didn't realize that it's wrong. But my husband, I guess he grew up in Australia, which I really commend him for being that kind of person. He would be like, don't do that. Nagagalit ka agad. And sometimes, hi Mom, later, I love you still. But yeah, so he kind of gets upset with these things. But I had to explain it to him, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that what it was. And then so later on, when that arises again, my husband kind of learned to, not to tolerate me, but to teach me how to do it better or how to be better at things in the way how he know. But also sometimes I've realized that how he's trying to be patient with me with my ways. I always forget things. I always, I don't remember where I put my phone while I'm already holding it. And before, it makes him upset. And I kind of understand that, if you keep on doing things that way. But then I guess he prayed for patience. He probably said, Lord, give me patience. I want to be married for the rest of our lives. And I think, no, I'm not saying my husband didn't have that for the first time. But I commend him because he stuck with me up until now. I'm still forgetful. But up until now, I believe he's still in love. He's in love with me, even though I'm forgetful. And that is because of the patience that he have developed for me. Oh. So love is kind. To love others is to be kind. We should avoid an attitude of criticism. We should have a posture and speech that is upbuilding and encouraging. When you go online, I think what you see is the opposite. There's a lot of, well, I wouldn't say all the time, but a lot of times, there's this beautiful video, very cute things that you see, makes you laugh, makes you happy. But there's always this one thing that would always just ruin that positivity and say, could have gone better than this. Could have done better with this. But what we should actually do is just appreciate the video for its beauty, for whatever goodness it brought to you. Encourage, uplift, instead of putting down, instead of bashing. So we should be kind. We should be kind to others. We should always be conscious of everything that comes out of our mouth. Everything that we do should always be, we should be conscious that it wouldn't affect others negatively. So again, love is kind. Love is not jealous. Ewan ko minsan, it's hard. It's hard. That's the natural nature of, that's our nature. But what we are asked is not to be jealous of others. We should not covet what others have or begrudge another for possessing something we do not have. So, my husband and I have been married for, like I said, almost 10 years. I have two best friends. I got married in 2011. My best friend got married in 2017. And the other one got married 2018. Out of us three, the one who got married latest got pregnant first. She got pregnant with twins. And me and my best friend, we were so happy. We were very happy for her. Couple of months after, my best friend got married after being married, got pregnant after being married for 2 years. Mind you, they think that it's been 2 years, I'm not pregnant yet, we've been trying so hard, blah, blah, blah. Best friend, tumigil ka nga, I'm married for 10 years. I'm not pregnant yet. Another close friends here, Amo. She waited for her blessing as well. She got married afterwards. She got pregnant afterwards. Another friend, it's like everyone around me is getting pregnant. And I'm here 10 years waiting, praying, and it hasn't come. But you know what? I am very, very proud to say, and I'm very honest when I say this, that I am very happy for them. I am not jealous. Yes, I do want to have a baby, but I'm very happy for them. Because these people deserves to be a mother. These friends, they prayed for it. They were faithfully praying for this as well. So we should be happy in the success of others, and we should not be jealous. To love others is not to be pompous or inflated. We should be humble and think not of our own importance. We should be conscious of our own unworthiness rather than merit. So this is simply asking us to be humble. So it's asking us not to boast whatever, material things we have or every success we have, but rather we should be humble. Be happy for that success, but be humble and do not boast unto others like what you've gained. Oh, I got a new car. Oh, I got this. Oh, I have this. But keep humble. To love others is not to be rude. We should accord honor and respect to one another. Praise them if they do well, and console them if they do badly. I am guilty of this with my husband. One time he cooked, they have this function for, it's a high-end liquor. Can't remember what was it? Glenfiddich. So it's a high-end Glenfiddich, and I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of him. But my husband, knowing him, he's a very shy person. So if you ask him to talk in front, no matter how many times he prepares for it, no matter what he does, it's like whatever he prepared for, he forgets it. So I guess what's the gist of that talk? That's what's gonna remain on his head. So after we had all the food and all that, my husband was asked to talk in front and say something about whatever he cooked. And everybody was so clapping, woohoo, well done chef, and I'm like sitting there, and he did the talk and I was laughing. And when he finished, when we were about to go home, he goes, how did I do my talk? And then he goes, you did really well in cooking. The food was awesome. But you know what? I've realized that that's not the way it should have been. I should have said, you did really well, Bob. Because knowing him, it must have taken him a lot, for him to talk in front. So that is not a good example. And I said sorry to him. I said, Bob, you're really good. You did say a lot of good things. And the food was really awesome. And it was really awesome. So let's practice being positive. Let's practice, especially to the people that we love, especially to the people that we are close to, be nice to them. Even though he knows that I was just kidding, it must have hurt him for me to say that. It must have offended him when I said, galing ka magluto, okay lang. Because that meant like he didn't really do well, right? So I'm guilty. We shouldn't be doing that. And that's not what love should be. So love is not self-seeking. We should not focus on having our rights, but focus rather than on our duties to others. I feel like nowadays, in this day and age, everyone feels like we're entitled. We're entitled of this, entitled of that. I want this, I want that. And so people feel like, you should give it to me, I should have this. But we should not focus, as it says here, we should not focus on having our rights met, but focus rather on duties to others. So instead of demanding of getting what we think we deserve, we should actually be an instrument on meeting the needs of that person. The needs of our husband, the needs of our mother, the needs of our friends, the needs of our household members. Like they say, the world does not revolve around you alone. You're just one person in that world. Not quick-tempered. I guess it's correlated with patient and, not quick-tempered. To love others is not to be quick-tempered. We should master our emotions and feelings. Slow to frown, but quick to smile. It's not asking you to be plastic and just put the tape in there and just smile like that. But it is asking you to, hey, step back. Think about it first before you actually react. They say, think before you react. Tawa ng bawis sa mukha ko. Okay. So it says, love does not brood over injury. We should not hold grudges or resentments, but rather be forgiving and understanding of the weakness of others. I think this can only be done if you have love in your heart. Because when someone does something wrong to you, it hurts. There's already this mark, may peglat, and it just doesn't go away. It's hard to forgive. You know what they say, like, forgive and forget. But it's hard. It's a challenging thing to do, to forgive when someone really wrongs you. But I speak for experience. And this is what I always tell my husband. Do you know why I know I love you? Is because even though you have offended me yesterday, today I'm still in love with you. Today I still love you. There is nothing that you have done yesterday could make me feel that I don't love you. And in our marriage, I think for all of us, even the ones that have been married earlier than us, I think every day we still struggle with making mistakes and trying to please and trying to do what we really ought to do. It's an everyday challenge, and every day we keep on getting better, and every day we keep on trying to improve ourselves. So hopefully every day, in forgiving, we become, we are generous, we become more generous in forgiving. Because a relationship that does not forgive and it's there already. I mean, it doesn't flourish, it doesn't go anywhere. You know, if you just say it without even really feeling it, without even really thinking about it, doesn't mean anything. A forgiveness doesn't mean anything kung ganun lang. And so I think forgiving, giving mercy, this is an everyday practice for us wife, for us husband, for us being children of our parents, the brothers, our friends. Does not rejoice over wrongdoing. We should always seek the good in others, even with people that we find difficult to deal with. I grew up in Philippines, so I have different ways of doing things. And I guess we have this culture, like I'm speaking about my work, and we grew up in this culture where when you have work, you value that work. Some of us would cling into it because we know the feeling of how hard it is to get a job. But I have been into workplaces wherein I guess they are very privileged here in Australia, wherein they really don't care. It doesn't matter. They don't care if they have offended you. For them, they say it. You know, they just speak their minds, and it doesn't matter because they thought it's okay. But for me, no, I think, as I've said earlier, you think first before you act. But before joining this company, I was warned where I am now. I was warned that you will be joining a team of bunch of young girls. And so immaturity, feeling privileged, all these challenges with young workers. And every day it is a challenge. And sad to say, there's also a Filipina in our community, in our office, and she was like, alam mo ba, si ganito yan. Like, she was already giving me a prejudgment of these people. And when I had my interview, I was also given that, that they are this. And I said, Lord, thank you for my work. I am ready. Next day I came. And then I asked, there was like a lot of call, very busy, blah, blah, blah. And they were talking about lunch. This is like 10. She started at 9:30. And I'm so upset already. Oh my gosh, it's so busy. I've been here 7 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. And I asked her, where are you going? There is a call for you. She said, you don't, blah, blah, blah. She swore at me because it's their culture that they swear there. Where I go. You don't ask where I go. Thank you, Lord, for my word. Thank you, Lord, for my word. I feel like she's wronged me there already. Like, she did something wrong with me already. But you know what? I forgive her even though without her saying sorry. Tomorrow is another day. And this person probably didn't think she did offend me. She offended me. So it's like a clean slate every day. And it gets better because if I allowed the judgment that was given to me by the other coworker, I wouldn't have appreciated this person like the way how she really is. She's really good with what she does, and she's very, very smart. And she's willing to help, but it's just the way how she is. Okay, rejoices in truth. To love others is to rejoice in truth. We should always be sincere and honest to tell the truth to one another. So obviously, we should always be honest. To love others is to have forbearance. We should patiently and humbly bear insults, injuries, and disappointments without taking counteractions. So, wag kang gaganti. To love others is to have the trust and to believe in the best about other people. We should have positive attitude towards others, always seeking their good side. To love others is to have hope. We should have positive attitude towards life and other people and remain joyful and peaceful under any circumstance. To love others is to have endurance. We should have developed an ability to bear things not with passive resignation but with triumphant attitude. So we are able to assume the characteristics of Christian love if we can honestly substitute the word I for the word love in Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Can you read it? Okay, so join me. Love. Okay, so can you use I instead of love and instead of the word it? So I would read it and you ask yourself. Love is patient, love is kind. Can you say I am patient, I am kind, I am not envy, I am not boast, or I do not boast, I am not proud, I am not rude, I am not self-seeking, I am not easily angered, I keep on record. I do not keep any records of wrongs. I do not delight in evils, but rejoice with the truth. I always protect, I always trust, I always hope, I always persevere, and I never fail. Well, love never fails. Okay, before I go, actually, I need to call one of my sharer. May I please call on Anthony to do a bit of sharing?
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony. I am the good-looking husband. Can I just ask everyone to stand up real quick? I just want to wake everyone up again. I know it's late in the afternoon. Okay, sit back down. That's it. Just want to make sure everyone's paying attention again. Everyone's paying attention. I just want to do a quick sharing regarding our talk, loving our neighbors. As my wife said, our neighbors that we talk about are not necessarily our physical neighbors that we live in. We're speaking about the people around us, the people we work with, the people we come across with. Everybody here, my neighbors. Growing up, my parents always taught me to be kind to people. My parents always told me what their lesson to me was when I see someone in need, when I see somebody a beggar, when I see someone who's probably fallen down, always help them out because they could probably be Jesus, they could be God in a form of a physical human being, and it's always good to help others. So that has been implanted in my mind as a little boy. And then as I got older, I tried to do a lot of those things. I work in the city, I travel by train a lot. So when I'm on a full train, and then this happened last week when 6 elderly couples walked in the train, and the train was full. I was sitting by the window, and I really, first there were still a couple of seats empty, so the ladies got to sit, but the elderly men stood up. And I noticed that nobody stood up. I thought about standing up straight away, but the thought of me asking the people who were sitting before me to stand up, I hesitated a little bit. But then I said, let's do this for God. Let's do this, let's stand up. Let's at least one of them could sit. So as I stood up, I said aloud, you gentlemen can have one of my seat if nobody else is gonna stand up. I think people overheard, other people stood up, so they got to sit down, and it was just a humbling feeling. Another thing is, just recently at my work, I work in the kitchen. I run a kitchen in the city in Modern Place called Veranda Restaurant, and just recently I was needing of another staff to take care of one of my sections. So I got to interview this guy. He looked like a great guy, good experience on his resume, and I gave him the job. And then he's good. He's a quick learner. He does things the way I want it. But we came across one time where he was so busy that he was throwing pans, throwing tongs, because he was really angry. I was not put off, but I got a little bit worried. So after service, I pulled him aside. I said, "What's up?" He said, "I just have this worry that you're throwing pans at people. I'm worried about other people getting affected by your work movements." And then he said he told me that he's got this anger problem. So he has this anger problem, which kind of alerted me a little bit, because I don't want people to worry about his anger. I just don't want him to be throwing pans at people next time that he's angry. So I pulled him aside after work. We sat down, and then he started to open up to me again further. And he mentioned that he had just recently been out of jail for 2 months. He was in jail for 2 years. And we just had this sincere talk. He wants to turn his life around. He wants to be a better person. He wants to prove to his wife that he's not the same person he was before. And I told him I want to give him a chance. Let's focus on his skill, because I thought he had very good skill in doing the stuff on that section. So I thought it was just right that I pass on the information he's giving me to our GM. I've mentioned to the GM a lot of the things he's discussed to me, and right there and then the GM decided that we should get rid of him, as this could be trouble. This could be something quite bad for the company. I told the GM that I think we should give him a chance. I think it's not right that we should judge himself just because he's out of jail. He's just fresh out of jail. I've convinced the GM that let's give him a month or two, just to see how he goes. So in due time, he still gets angry, but I give him this look where I remind him about our little conversation, so he kind of calms himself a little bit more. And then actually from then on, every week on Fridays, because we don't open on weekends, which is such a luxury for my work. I sit him down. I catch up with him. I talk to him, and I just want to make sure that he's still enjoying what he's doing. I just want to make sure that he's actually improving himself. He's actually getting better. Like I said, he still gets angry every now and then, so I always pray for patience. I always pray for his anger not to pass on to me. So, in saying that, it also taught myself to have just this patience that comes out of nowhere. He I see he's getting better. I see he's there. I always silently pray for this guy, and yeah, I'm actually very proud of him because he's been there for 3 months now, and his marriage is just getting better. Yeah, it just goes to show that, you know, what my parents taught me in the beginning, where God could be in each and every person. So that's it. Thank you.
I would like to call on another sharer. I would like to continue with my talk. And when he's ready, he will be doing the sharing. But he's ready now, so he will do the sharing now. Without further ado, let me call on Carlo and Juson.
Sorry guys, just a quick wee break. Hi brothers and sisters, good afternoon. My name is Carlo. I belong to the Blacktown Chapter Parramatta Unit. First and foremost, I would like to thank Bro Eric, Brother Ray, and the rest of the service team for inviting me today to give a simple sharing regarding about I think I just combine my sharing in regards to loving God and loving your neighbor. Well, listening to the talk of sis, most especially when she mentioned about the Corinthians Bible verse, I always remember that verse because my favorite movie is A Walk to Remember, wherein it was mentioned in that movie and also in the book of Nicholas Spark, which has the same title, which is A Walk to Remember. Every time up to now, every time I watch that movie, it still shed tears to my eyes. But secondly is the movie of Popoy and Basha, which is one of my chance. No one can beat that. I assume everybody watched that movie before. It will be a great and my honor to be in front of here because my wife is not here, so I can share everything under the sun. And nobody will judge me when I go home. Just a quick sharing to you guys. Just a quick sharing to you guys. Before I went here, the moment I opened my eye this morning, my wife told me, "What will be your sharing?" And then I told her that it's a secret. I will not tell you. Because first and foremost, I was still contemplating what will be my sharing. That's the reason why I told her it's a secret. It's just an scapegoat, just to pretend that, don't worry, I'm prepared. But she always asks me what will be your sharing each and every. Even the moment I hopped into the car going here, she told me, "Good luck to your sharing. Could you please tell me what will be your sharing?" And then I told her, "Do not worry, God will provide." Okay, this is the first time that I will share this to the public. When I was sitting there in front, I was thinking, do I need to share this or not? My sharing is about the other way around. When you say loving your neighbor, I was the one who experienced giving love to another person. But this time around, I will share to you that I'm the one who received the loving from a neighbor, which is my wife. Having a good life in the Philippines after graduation, I was fortunate that I have followed my dreams and successfully worked in a government agency, which is the Bureau of Customs in the Philippines. And at the same time, after passing the board exam, I was then become a professor in a prestigious university in the Philippines. And that was my dream. That is really my dream, to become a professor. Well, basically, if you become a professor, though you are not an engineer, though you are not a doctor, when you say that you are a professor in a prestigious university, it means a lot. It means a lot. But I have been overcome. I have been eaten by those prestige, and not knowing for the fact that I have been jumping into the fence wherein I forgot to become a good person. At that time, my girlfriend, sorry about that, my girlfriend at that time, which is my wife right now, is working in Dubai at the time. We have a long distance relationship for 6 years. For 6 years, and praise God, we have overcome it. But I was eaten by those prestige that unfortunately I have an affair with another, and unfortunately it was my student at that time. I'm not boasting this in front of you because I want to just boast because, hey guys, I'm good looking. No, it's not. It's just really a pain in the ass for me to keep it as a secret. My wife doesn't know about it after we got married and she got pregnant. I kept it. I deny it, and I just buried it in the coffin. So it pursued, but then somebody knows it, which is the head of the school. And they kicked me out. They kicked me out of the university. I was so angry, I was so frustrated that I wanted vengeance because I felt that I don't deserve it. Though, because in my head, I was thinking that even though I have an affair with my student, I was teaching them the way I wanted to teach them. And then they are happy that I become their professor. Well, basically, I was happy because right now they are all professionals. But then, my wife found it out. She found it out, I think, when she was 6 months pregnant, when we are in Singapore. Just like Sis Riz and Sis Bro Jaja, we come from Singapore, and I started my journey in the CFC in Singapore as well. And then my wife found out. It was the shock of my life when she found it out. I didn't know that she was talking to the girl that I have an affair with. I didn't know that. She just tell me all of a sudden that, oh, you have an affair. And then I just deny it. No, I do not have. Who told you that? And then she told me the whole story and everything, and I have nothing to deny. But that is my worst fear for her to know, because I do not have a point in my life that I will tell her about this story, because it just happened. It's just for me. It's just a thing in the past. Nothing happened anymore. But then she found it out. So basically, a mindset of a girl, a wife, if you know what I mean, if your husband is keeping secrets from you and you suddenly found it out, you will get angry. Yes, she got angry. She got angry. But she forgives me. She forgives me. Because she told me that loving you doesn't mean that because I love you. It means that I love you unconditionally. I accepted you, not now because that's the way you are, but I also accepted your past, even though you hide it for me. And it was a relief for me because I kept praying to the Lord at that time, Lord, do I need to tell it to my wife? Do I need to keep it a secret? Because it's just past. No need for me to tell her. But then, in Filipino, you can say that walang sikretong hindi nabubunyag. Everything will just come out. Everything will just come out. And she forgives me. And she also told me that even though your attitude change, you know what my wife told me, and it's good for the wife as well. You pray over to your husband when she's sleeping, and it's a good, and it's a, I mean, it works when you pray over to somebody, most especially your husband, your wife, or your daughter. And another thing is, I have not been talking to that girl for the past 10 years. Last month, I have the shock of my life when I know from Facebook that she has the highest form of cancer is stage 4. She has a stage 4. At a young age, she has stage 4 cancer. I didn't talk to her because I was angry with her because she told my wife everything that had happened in the past. And then I was contemplating that whole night thinking that do I need to call her just to fix everything. And then I called her, I cried because I felt sorry for her. And I asked forgiveness, will you forgive me of all the things that had happened? And she told me, yes, I forgive you. But right now, that is one nail of the coffin that I have removed from where I was hiding right now. And it was a relief for me because at least somebody forgives me. And I have forgiven somebody as well. Because for me, loving your neighbor is just not by loving. Loving your neighbor, for me, is all about forgiveness and acceptance. And that's the most important thing when you said loving your neighbor. And for this, may God be praised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlo and Anthony. That's really heartfelt. And I admire you both for that kindness and for giving that love to your neighbors. So let me continue on with my talk. So what kind of love are we ought to give, or what does loving other means? So loving others as Jesus loves us means serving others. So loving our neighbor, firstly, loving our neighbor is not an option. So as I have said earlier, it is a commandment. And Jesus commanded us to love others not only as we love ourselves, but as He loves us. And how did God love us? Or how did He love us? Or should I say, how does He love us? Because He still loves us. I give you a new commandment, love one another as I have loved you, so you should love one another. Jesus emphasized in this commandment, He stated this several times, this is my commandment, as love one another as I have loved you. Jesus elevated loving one's neighbor to a higher plane. We are to love our neighbor not only as we love ourselves, but God loves us since God loves us with self-sacrificing, forgiving, prodigal love. Then we must also love our neighbor with self-sacrificing, forgiving, and prodigal love. Well, Jesus showed the example of a Christian love when He washed the feet of His disciples. When He finished, He told His disciples, do this likewise. So basically what He is asking us is to do what He did. So He showed His love by serving others, by serving us. And this happened, and this is an example of that act. So when He washed the feet of the disciples. So how much does Jesus loves us? I I don't know how you can quantify God's love. How can you measure God's love? I'm just gonna say this, like, He died for us. Can anyone do better than that? Can anyone top that kind of love? And He's not asking us to go over that, but He's just asking us to follow that. Like laying your life, giving your life for someone, that's a different kind of love. And you ask yourself, can you do that kind of love? Can you give that kind of love? Can you sacrifice yourself for others? Would you die for your children? Would you die for your husband? Would you die for your wife? Maybe some of you would say yes, but my other question is, would you die for a stranger? Ask yourself. Because God did that for us. Again, it's stated there that it is a commandment, and it says, I give you a new commandment, love one another as I have loved you, so you should also love one another. So, no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. So like I said, God died for us, and that's enormous, that's big. So our model for loving our neighbor is Jesus Himself. I guess you guys know what is a Good Samaritan. Like, to summarize it, the parable of Good Samaritan, to summarize it, there was a Jew or a stranger who got hurt, and a priest walked in and just ignored. And then I think a lawyer, another person came in and again ignored. But the Samaritan, and this is not just another person, because a Samaritan and a Jew, if you go back in the history, they have a big gap. Like, they have a big, like, they don't like each other. So anyway, when a Samaritan walked in, he helped. In short, he helped that person who was hurt, and he looked after that. He even brought it to the inn and asked that person, the innkeeper, to look after. If ever there would be extra expenses, he will pay for it. And so this Samaritan did this to a stranger. And that's basically what we are asked, like, can you do something like this? Can you help, or would you help someone that you have walked past? Would you go back to that person who was actually asking for your help? You know what? I remember one of our sisters who is present here is a perfect example of someone who would just open their doors for anyone. My sister, Misai, one of her sharing during our household, when we were doing our household as a household head before in our unit, she shared this one time, and I could never forget how this person in this day of age would open her door to stranger. So someone knocked on her door. This is at 10 p.m. apparently, and I think Hex was not at home because he was working. And that stranger knocked, and he said, I think someone of that friend who is Misai's neighbor forgot her wallet, and Misai opened the door at 10 p.m. I don't think I would do that. I don't know that person. And this person was entertained by Misai. Because I believe Misai sees this person that it could be Jesus, and I don't know, maybe she didn't think of it could be Jesus because maybe naturally she is a good-natured person and she doesn't think ill of other people. She doesn't think that, this stranger would hurt me or anything. She thinks good of others. She opened the door and then she realized that this person has need. And do you know why this person opened the door? Because on Misai's door there is a cross. And that person thought that my cross sa door niya, this person should be a good person and I could also trust her. So that person was going to give Misai the wallet of the neighbor. And yeah, so that's a perfect example of a good Christian with good Christian love, characteristics. So loving our neighbor means active involvement. So you don't just say I love you, but it's also asking us to act on it, to do something. And again, sir, when you love God, so you look up, you ask God for blessings and everything, but it's also asking you to spread your wings because it's asking you to love God, like sideways, left and right, but above as well. So you love God and you love thy neighbor. So open your arms. That's it.